Okay guys, let's talk about the network portion, what we have in the network portion. I need you guys attention as well. The first thing you may encounter is a MAC address. Once you click in MAC address, you will see that there is two types of MAC address. One is a static address setting, another is filtering address setting. So with a static MAC address, the main purpose of this one is just reserve the MAC address for that specific VLAN, and we can say for a specific a VLAN, yes, or for a specific port. Let's say uh, this is my access point MAC address, and this access point should belong to VLAN 1, and then I say that this should be only belong to port number 5. So if you look at in here, I can specify one port. I say this MAC address is okay, reserve, find it, keep it, and this MAC address is dedicated for VLAN 1. I would say save. Alright, if you look at in here, port Giga Ethernet 0/5 is reserved for one MAC address, which is this MAC address. This is my access point. This is power over Ethernet access point. Is FS company, one of the beautiful access point that is very flat as well. We discussed about this one in one of my video, and I have shared how to configure this kind of access point. It does come with a 2 mode. You can configure this one if you have a wireless controller, and you manually can configure this access point as an autonomous access point as well. And the visual, it can act as access point and can act as a router as well. So I don't want to eat up with your time about this specific access point. All right. So the question is, can we reserve two MAC address to the same specific interface? The question is yes. Let's change the last 2 digit to like FE, and I would say this should belong to VLAN 20, the same interface. Alright guys, as you look at in here, so this is how you can reserve, like any packets come from this port, it is okay, this MAC address is fine for this VLAN. For example, if you remove the wireless access point and you want to plug another devices to this same specific port, you're good to go. Alright, let's see what is the blueprint in here. They have mentioned the FS company. If you configure MAC port binding on the network device manually, so MAC port binding is related to port security. We're going to discuss about that one as well. They said if you configure that one manually, after you add a static address, the switch that received the packet with the same destination address forward it to the specific port with 802.1x. Authentication enabled. You can implement authentication exception by binding MAC address with the port. So we specified the MAC address, means here is the place where we can reserve the MAC address, but the part of the configuration will be related to the port security. It comes to the security. If you have a radio server 802.1x, so this is how you can specify, this is how you can add a static address to your network switch to S3410 series. Let's come to the filter. And the filter, what we have, if a switch receive a packet with the source/destination MAC address, which is configured as a filter address, it discards, it reject, eliminate, prevent the all packet. You can prevent ARP attack, ARP or resolution protocol attack. For example, most of the time it happened with the DHCP. We have a DHCP starvation. If anyone of you heard about the DHCP starvation, so client ran its own fake request to my DHCP. It sent the ARP request like, hey, I need the internet, I need IP, I need IP. It's gonna happen end of the day that my DHCP gonna be reserved. My DHCP will be full. Then if the new request come to ask for the IP, the DHCP said that, you know, man, whatever IP that I had, I distributed, and everyone is having it IP, and I cannot help you to give you an IP. So in order to prevent that kind of things, we can do MAC filtering. So this is MAC filtering. Another step that I can say for this one is why our attack is very important to make sure that it shouldn't happen in our network is that almost every network switch, let me come to the home. Just give me 1 second. I want to find a very important things which is very necessary for all of you to know. 512 MB memory for, we have a contents addressable memory. If you remember, we have a COM table. So if you send a request to the switch will hold information. So what request you are sending? You're sending a ARP request, address resolution protocol request. You get my point or not? So you send the request like, hey, I need an IP. I need to know what am I supposed to do, which VLAN is belong to me, but somehow I need to get access to internet. So this is the ARP request to your switch. One time, so every switch does come as a specific memory. I mean, let's say this is 512 or 512 MB specific for ARP request. So if there's a too much ARP request, what's gonna happen is your switch is gonna stack. Switch will not goes down. I remember that. I remember that it happened in one of the project. So the switch will not goes down, but if you plug your computer to switch is like stuck. You cannot send the request to the ARP like, hey, I need a request, I need the internet, I need the DHCP, I need to make sure that I am belong to this port. I need to make sure that I am belong to this port. So what's gonna happen at this time? Switch said, oh, I'm overload. I didn't know you. I can recognize you because there is no enough memory to think about you, whether you belong to this port or not. This is the main purpose of ARP attack. So that's why, in order to prevent those kind of attack, what we're gonna do, we're gonna filter. We can say MAC filtering. We have to filter the MAC address. It depends on which kind of MAC address you want to filter, but this is the main purpose of MAC filtering. If I add in here, remember that you cannot add if you add a static. Let's say I want to copy this one and I want to make this one as let's say MAC filtering or filtering address setting. If I add in here, let's say this is the MAC address and this one is belong to VLAN number 1. Save. If you see that there is a 2 MAC address which is designed, which is configured for filtering. Filter this MAC address, make sure that there is no wrong with this with this MAC address. If any ARP requests come from this MAC address randomly, block it, eliminate it, discard. I know this MAC address and this MAC address is belong to this VLAN, and if this MAC address is coming from this VLAN and different address, reject it. No need for that. Alright, if you look at in here, the static addresses wipe from here automatically because I add that one as a filter. This is the main purpose of MAC. I hope I can understand everything about what is MAC address and what is static addressing and what is the filtering. Routing. So it is L2 layer 3 switch, and manually you can do routing as well. Remember that. So once you purchase this switch, you can easily find out that this switch is L2. It's layer 2 switch. The beautiful things with this switch is, as a network engineer, if I need anything, I can find out in here. I don't have to browse another switch as well. Beautiful. We have a static routing. We have a default routing as well. Let's say static routing. So if any one of you familiar about the static routing, I say that 192.168.11.0. Subnet was 255.255.255.255. The port. So which kind of port you want? Which one is? So I cannot type anything in here. Let me find out the VLAN. Let me come to the VLAN. Sorry, I have to come to the port. I wanna configure VLAN 10. I cannot say 11 anything. So there should be a specific VLAN which specific IP. I said VLAN number 10. Let's say VLAN 10. It's 10 dot something, right? Exactly, 10.1. I want to assign a static IP. The IP address is 192.168.10.0. 255.255.255. This is belong to VLAN 10. And the next hop, here's the thing. The next hop is let's say 200.61.1210 10.1. This is my, let's say this is one of my another router, and this is another router. So I see that in order to load balance, let's say I want to do the redundance, I want to load balance. I said any request come to my network switch, this is 35 switch, so especially the range of 192.168.10.0, this request must goes to the different gateway. I mean, I have a two public IP. One is something else, but this is the second public IP. I said go to the another public IP. Now this is only specific for that range. If I want to create another one, let's say 192.168.20.0, entire range, and this is also belong to VLAN 20, and the next hop is 200.200.200.3. So these are an example. I mean, these are an example. So what I have done in here is I say that VLAN number 20, whatever requests come, I mean, whatever devices connected to this VLAN, they should go to different gateway. Now I want to create a default route. Here's important, very important. I say default route for what? I said for VLAN. So if you look at in here, I have aggregate port as well. The Ether channel for the Cisco, we have Ethernet channel, but for the FS company, we have aggregate port. Aggregate port. I say VLAN 1. So the next hop should be 200. The 200. Sorry, that I have no idea. Let's say this is gonna be the next hop. Save. So the default route, if you look at in here, I have a default route. Any request, it is not only VLAN 10, VLAN 20. I said VLAN 1, VLAN 30. If I create any other VLAN as well, those requests should goes to 200.61.210.1. Go to that direction. This is called the default routing. So the question is that what if I just send every request? Let's eliminate. I don't want the VLAN 10 goes to that specific gateway. Thank you. I don't want this thing. Okay, so what's gonna happen in this scenario? VLAN 1, VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 30 will definitely goes to this direction. The next hop address 200.61.210.1. This is how you can configure a default routing. But the static routing is sometimes some of the range are very important. For example, HR, finance department, and so on. If you want to specify and send it to some other places as you wish. This was how you can configure routing using S3410 series. Spanning tree protocol. The question is, what is STP? STP stands for Spanning Tree Protocol. What is the purpose of Spanning Tree Protocol? There's a two most important things attached to Spanning Tree Protocol. The first thing is Spanning Tree Protocol is a protocol which is designed for the network switches. It is not for router. It is for network switches. Remember that. I need your attention. With the help of a Spanning Tree Protocol, we can specify, like say, switch number 1 should be switch number 1 is belong to VLAN 10. Switch number 2 is belong to VLAN number 20. Switch number let's say number 3 is belong to VLAN number 30. So this is how I specify. There's a load balancing. I said any request goes, it should goes to VLAN number 30, and number 3 is belong to number 30 is belong to switch number 30. Remember that. I need your attention because I may say something which makes you confused, but the main purpose of spanning tree protocol to eliminate the loop. Anything. For example, here's the thing. If you have a one Ethernet port connect to the switch, connect to this specific switch, and the another side of this switch is again connect to this switch. Guys, if the switch is not smart, what's gonna happen? There is a loop inside the switch. That's why we have a ARP filtering. If you remember MAC filtering is to specify I don't want double requests come to through this double request. For example, your MAC address is 1234, and if 1234 is in port 1 and the same request come to 1234 to port number 2, then the switch will get confused, like which one is accurate, which one is right, which one is the accurate, which one is right. So that's why spanning tree protocol will eliminate that port first. And the second is if you connect two switch with one another, what's going to happen? There's a loop because they are connecting with one another, especially if you have a parallel connection. For example, two ether channel or two trunk or aggregate port. And this time, if you don't have a spanning tree protocol, there will be a loop. There, the switch will not like function properly. Spanning tree protocol find the best switch for you, and spanning tree protocol eliminate the port that doesn't use, and there is a too much issue with that port. Eliminate that one, and meanwhile, this is a good thing for what to load balance our network. Let's say I want a spanning tree protocol. The first thing is I want a spanning tree protocol. The first is spanning tree protocol global setting. This is a global setting. I turn on this one, and instance number 0 and VLAN is all VLAN. Okay, priority number 8, hello time is 20, forward delay is 15. So if anything happen, overall you may expect a 20 second downtime. So there's a two protocol. There's a spanning tree protocol. The spanning tree protocol is a very normal protocol and no one is using nowadays. I would say let's start using a rapid spanning tree protocol. Rapid spanning tree protocol is the fastest spanning tree protocol that this is from the network engineer. I can say this is the network engineer recommended for all the project to use rapid spanning tree protocol. So the question is why we are not using MST, multi-spanning tree protocol. If you have, let's say, if you have a 20 or say 50 or 100 VLAN, then that is the point, that is the time that you can use MST. MST is a spanning and multi-spanning tree protocol. I say that VLAN 1, let's say VLAN 1, 10, 20, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. These all should be belong to one instance. So multi-spanning tree protocol is like if you have a 50 VLAN, so VLAN 1 to 10 is belong to one instance. VLAN let's say 11 to 20 is belong to another instance. So then you can specify that this switches belong to this instance, this switches belong to this instance. So it is a little bit complicated, but this concept of multi-spanning tree protocol, if you have if you have a 50 VLAN and more than that, my suggestion is to go ahead for MST. Multi-spanning tree protocol, rapid spanning tree protocol, one of the most common spanning tree protocol. I will use this one. Safe, make sure when you configure another switch of S3410, make sure to configure the rapid spanning tree protocol. Besides that, rapid spanning RSTP is compatible with the spanning tree protocol, with the regular one, and with the multi-spanning tree protocol as well. But make sure to configure as the same, then you may not encounter any issue. Let's say spanning tree protocol, port port setting. As you notice in here, BPTU guard is disable, port fast is disable in here. Status app, for example, any port is on, spanning tree protocol is on. Connection mode is point to point. It is point to point. It's beautiful. So let's say let's come in here. I want to turn on post on port number 4. What I'm going to do is root guard, loop guard, root guard. Root guard is like make sure keep this port because this port is connected to another switch. Root guard, I mean make sure that this port is connected to another switch and root guard it to make sure that there should be no loop. Number 1. Enable root guard. I enable root guard. Port fast, enable port fast. What is a port fast? Port fast is in here if you leave the port as a normal, what's gonna happen? It takes like listening, learning, forwarding, listening, learning, forwarding. The entire process will take 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds, maybe 1 minute. It depends on which kind of media you're using, which kind of cable you're using. I say that let's post port fast, like eliminate everything. Don't learn, don't listen, don't do nothing. Just once I plug my switch, once I plug my network, once I plug my computer to that specific port, it should automatically blanking and read this thing. For example, in the corporate and enterprise scenario, we configure these kind of things for the servers. For example, if server is connected to, let's say, server is connected to number 10. 9 and 10. 9 and 10 is connected to the server. What I say that port fast enable, I mean I don't want to delay for the server if anything happen. If server is turned off for some reason and we want to turn it on again, and I don't want the port fast come in here and tell me, hey, wait a minute, I want to read it, what does you belong, where you supposed to go. I said no, don't do that. It should be port fast. This is the main protocol. This is the main purpose of the port fast. Auto, I will keep it point to point because if auto is a combination of point to point and shared as well, I say keep it auto. All right, this is the exact purpose of if you look at the here number 9 and number 10. BPD guard is enable, and protection port is port guard. Port guard, I mean, if anything happen, you have to eliminate and block it. Port fastest enable as well. This is how you can configure. RLDP. With the Cisco, we have a CDP, Cisco Discovery Protocol. With the FS company, we have a RLDP. It is enabling RLDP on the port can avoid broadcasting a storm because by loop. It is recommended to enable RLDP on the port connected to PC, personal computer. Beautiful. And then this is how they recommend it. They said you have to make sure to enable it port which is belong to PC, personal computer. So let's add the port. And here I would say warning, loop detection, anything happen. Port number 15 is belong to that one. So your session is unlocked and okay, the session has expired. All right, that's fine. Where are we? Spanning tree protocol. We were here and okay, it's enable, and now I'm going to assign a port for that specific. I said yes, anything goes wrong, detected. Loop detection, warning, anything you can specify, block, shutdown port, and manual loop. If anything happened, just give me warning, do not block the port. And here do not block, just give me the warning, just show me the warning. And this is belong to this two port 13 and 14. Save it. So what's gonna happen is that RLDP, if anything happened with these port, just give me the notification because that port is belong to my servers. If anything happened with those ports, I just need to know that. All right, let's come to another portion, IGMP Snooping. I want to enable this one. So the question is why? I want to enable this one and I don't want anyone to ask me why. All right, IGMP Snooping. This is only designed for multicasting. For example, if I send a request to you and there is your brother is also beside you, so I don't want your brother to get this message. For example, hey, do you mind to have a do you mind to send me your resume? So your brother will beside you and your brother doesn't want to listen this one, even though he doesn't mind, but this is not for him. I mean, if he sent the resume, of course this is not what I was asking. So the same thing has happened with the IGMP snooping. If a request come to the switch, for example, this switch is connected to a computer. So I say that, hey, if I send this request, it should goes to computer number 2. I don't want computer number 1 know what I send it because this is a nice in our network. This is a nice in our network. I don't want multicast requests inside my switch. I don't want. I mean, if I say, do you mind to send me your resume? So I don't want your brother listen that because this message is not for your brother. It's not something to hide. But I mean, what's the point? Why your brother supposed to listen this message? That is the main purpose. I want to enable this one. If you want to create a profile, let's say profile ID as um, IGMP snooping. Range multicast, whatever you range you said, let's say 224.0.0.0 set and 12, better to number it. And in here I can say 239.2 and 255.255. That's it. So in here it says that which port do you need IGMP enable. I say all of these port IGMP enable. I mean, I don't want multicast anything. I don't want, I mean, all the port Even I can see this port as well. Okay, we cannot add on aggregate port. We can add on trunk port. Remember guys, this is a trunk port. Save. So I said I don't want any multi-cut message to come inside my switch and goes everywhere. I said, hey, I want your resume. The entire request goes to the entire ports. If I don't turn on this one, the entire port says, hey, there's a guy asking for a resume. Who's the right person to answer his question? That's not. So this is how you can configure IGMP. DHCP Relay. So the question is, what is DHCP Relay? Let me close this one. Yeah. The main purpose of DHCP Relay is that if IP helper, if anyone of you heard about IP helper, voice over IP, even though that port is belong to different VLAN, different network, with the help of IP helper, your handset were able to find the proper range of IP 192.168.1 dot something else. That was a IP helper. The same scenario is coming in S3410 series of FS company. In here I would say that, hey, here's the thing, I have a DHCP server. You don't have to give me an IP. I do have a DHCP server, kind of IP helper. So let's say that for my range of 192.168.10.100, this is the DHCP. All right. Now what I'm going to do is that this is IP version 4 and this is IP version 6. If you have IP version 6, that's beautiful. If you don't have IP version 6, that is fine. All right. I'm going to add another DHCP server, 192.168.20.100. This is my another DHCP IP helper. And I would say that 192.168.30.100. This is another DHCP. So what's gonna happen that if anyone connect to this VLAN number 20, VLAN number 10, 20, 30, they will automatically receive an IP from my DHCP server. Where's my DHCP server? It's not inside the switch. There is a DHCP server which is outside the switch. But that port is configured as a trunk. It is very complicated, but you just need to know the concept. So it should be trunk because that port is sending random IPs to the switch. So this is how you can configure DHCP relay. Authentication. There's two types of authentication. The question is, what is the authentication? Authentication is 802.11 AX. Authentication, like if anyone connect to this port, they should type username and password. They're not allowed to do anything. This is how you can do that in here. So there's a two-way. FS companies say that you don't have to, like in here, it requires no authentication software on the client and a state. You can perform authentication on common browser, just the browser. This was version 1. If I come to version 2, the version 2, if I do nothing in here, I don't have to do anything. If I directly come to Redis server, guys, here is the place where you can configure a Redis server as well. So this is your Redis server. This is the place where you can configure Redis server. A Redis server is a specific another server. For example, the IP address is 100. Let's say 120 because 100 is my access point, and the path per share key is ABC at 1234. Save. So this is my Redis server. This is how you can configure Redis server using S3410 series of S3410 series of network switch. If I want to delete, I can delete as well. Okay, this is that one portion, and in here if you want to change it, you can change it. If you doesn't want, I will keep it the same as authentication, experiment network resources. If I have any network resources for the authentication, I can type in here, but the best solution for me so far is I will go to of course version 2, and I will definitely type radio server instead of anything. This is the most and beautiful ways. Okay guys, in the next section what we're going to do, we're going to discuss about security. One of the very important things in here, we're going to discuss about the security. I need you guys attention. Let's see what we have in this security. Okay guys, now it is time to talk about the security portion of S3410 series of FS company manageable switch. It is gigabit switch as well, and it does support power over Ethernet and of course fiber connection as well. All right, let's come to the security portion, what we have in the security portion. If you come to DHCP snooping, so if you're familiar about the DHCP snooping, here's the place where you can enable DHCP snooping. The question is, what is DHCP snooping? So here's the thing. Most of the time when it happens, when you're working in an enterprise and bigger company, hacker is running his own DHCP server. So this is called dynamic, or we can say denial of services, DOS or the DOS. A distributed denial of service and dynamic denial of services as well. So somehow they want to eliminate, somehow they want to make a delay in your services. That is called a denial of service. So what we're gonna do is, since we have a one DHCP server and we know which port is connected to that specific DHCP server, we need to specify that one. And let's say that port number 2 is belong to the port which is connected to my DHCP server. Port number 2 is connected to my DHCP server, and now with this way that we configure right now, this is how we can trust and untrust. I say port number 2 gigabit Ethernet 0/2 is the port which is connected to my DHCP server. That is the only trusted port. The rest of this port, let's say save. I want to save it. I pick port number 2. So I need your attention, it's very important. Now what's gonna happen is, if I come back to again to DHCP snooping, you would see that port number 2 is selected. So means if a hacker trying to connect his computer to any port of my switch, whether he is connecting to port number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, my switch will say that, you know what, this guy's configured that port number 2 is only eligible to provide the DHCP for the entire client. So you're not allowed to provide a DHCP. This is the main purpose of DHCP snooping. Okay, so we just configure the DHCP snooping. We say that port number 2 is trusted and rest is untrusted. That is a beautiful thing. Now let's come to the gateway anti-ARP spoofing. The first thing is anti-ARP spoofing. Add anti-ARP spoofing. What does it mean? In here it says that this is called ARP poisoning, ARP spoofing. This is how we can configure, let's say, port number 3 and 4, and my default gateway is 192.168.10.1. Save. So what I have done in here, I say that port number 3 and port number 4 as anti-ARP spoofing. Remember that I do have a doubt. The reason which I picked number 3 and number 4, wait a minute, let me add port number 5. Excuse me, yeah, let me block these two. Let me delete this one, not block, just delete it. I want to add port number 5 because port number 5 is connected to my 192.168.10.1. It's a gateway. I say that a Giga Ethernet 0/5 is connected to my wireless access point. This one. ARP spoofing. I mean, if I receive any ARP, random ARP from this specific wireless access point, eliminate it, block it. I don't need a random access point, random ARP spoofing, random ARP to come to my switch, because I do have a specific memory, as I mentioned, to store the ARP, to store the MAC address. If I receive 100 MAC address, it is okay, but it's more than that. What's gonna happen is my switch gonna stop. So you have to specify the port, the one which you have a doubt. For example, if you're working in a university and meanwhile one of the port is connected to the let's say the library, and all of the port should configure with the anti-ARP spoofing. Port number 1, whatever port is connected to that specific places, because what if a kids or what a student ran its own DHCP or do whatever they want to do, this is how you can eliminate port number 5. ARP check. ARP check is almost ARP spoofing. ARP check is almost ARP spoofing as well. Let's say in here what they have mentioned. ARP check is used for to filter all ARP packet on their logical port and discard invalid ARP packet. So any invalid packet come inside the switch. Any invalid packet, any invalid ARP come inside the switch will eliminate and block that kind of things. but you have to know which kind of port you want to implement as well. It can effectively prevent ARP spoofing, ARP spoofing and improve network stability. A DHCP snooping trusted port cannot be enabled with the ARP check. So this is the DHCP. If you look at in here, this one is blocked. We cannot touch on port number 2 because that's a trusted port. I mean, that is a trusted port. Do not monitor that one. Do not do anything because I say that is a trusted guy. Just don't check him. He's nice. We know him. But now it said port number 3 and number 4. Port number 3 and number 4. Make sure to check the ARPs. If any ARP which is suspicious, eliminate it and block. Save. This is the main purpose of ARP check. We have a DIA setting. So the question is, what is DIA? In here it says dynamic ARP inspection. If some of you are most of you familiar about the dynamic ARP inspection, it is this portion is also helping the DHCP snooping in order to avoid untrusted port. VLAN DAI, we can say VLAN dynamic ARP inspection. We can assign through VLAN as well, and meanwhile we can assign through port as well. So what is a dynamic inspection or? So overall, the dynamic inspection comes with the two features, trusted and untrusted. If we say that, let's say VLAN, let's say in here VLAN number 10 had what I have mentioned in here, say VLAN number 10, whoever is member of VLAN number 10 is trusted. Do not do any inspection. Don't do inspection VLAN 10. Whoever is in the VLAN 10, do not inspection this. Remember this one. And now I say number 5 and number 6. Number 5 and number 6, trusted port, save. So what I have done in here, I say that VLAN 10 is trusted and meanwhile port number 5 and number 6 is trusted. If anything is going on inside port number 5 and port number 6, do not do anything. Don't inspect, let it go. Those are trusted port. Guess how? Because my computer is connected to port number 6. So that is why my suggestion is to do not do any inspection. The same as with VLAN 10. This is the main purpose of DIA setting. So dynamic ARP inspection. ARP entries. If you look at here, these are the ARP entries. You can binding, you can remove it if you want to remove it. If you don't want to remove it, this is a general information. Okay guys, if you look at here, I'm able, this is my access point. This is my wireless access point. Alright, what was the IP for my wireless access point? 192.168.1.101. What I'm going to do is I would say that here's the thing, because my access point is connected to port number 5 and I say, man, port setting, you have to make sure that this port is binding. Okay, what I have done in here, I say they apply DHCP snooping and this is untrusted, make sure that it's binding. It is source code applied to combine DHCP to port based IP address. Okay, now in here what I'm going to do is fully opposite. I would say that here's the thing. Just give me 1 second. The software is giving me a hard time. Add a binding. I say this is the MAC address and the IP address is 192.168.1.101. Is belong to VLAN number 1 and this is connect to port number 5. In here what I have done, I say that, hey, you know what, leave this guy. This is what I have done. In here I block it with the port setting. I block that specific port, do not do anything, and now I say pass this one, pass this specific. If any client connect to this access point, access point, what's gonna happen is that client is okay, that client goes without any issue, without any problem. But if I block that specific MAC address, it's different things. We can do the port security as well, but in here this is how you can bind as well, based on IP address, based on MAC address, and you can do based on MAC address and based on IP address as well. So this is the main purpose of user binding. So I binding, and if I add it means unbind it. Otherwise, if I do not have any filter in here, mean whatever I mention in here, that's gonna be blocked and will not go anywhere. Okay guys, we discussed about IP source guard, and now let's talk about port security. Okay, one of the another very important topic in this specific beautiful switch is a port security. Okay, let me add a port security. I said 2 times, and then protection aging is 0. So you see what he is doing. Let me specify port number 1 and port number 5. Save. What I have done in here, I say that port number 1 and port number 5. Port number 5 is connect to my wireless access point. If more than 2 MAC address come to this interface, eliminate, block that port, and protection is shut down that port. Turn off that port, because I don't want to have. This is how we can mitigate the MAC spoofing, MAC poisoning, ARP spoofing, ARP poisoning. So in here, I said port number 1. My computer is connected to port number 1. I say that only 1 MAC address or 2 MAC addresses. Okay, more than that, if there's a 2 MAC address, 3 MAC addresses coming to this specific port, block this port. This is the violation. If you guys remember with the Cisco, we have a violation. Protection in here, we have the same thing. If you say protection, trap notification means do not block but send me notification there's a 2 MAC address. Now is do nothing. All right, so we have done these 2 things. Let's talk about security binding. I say IP address. This is my IP address, and my computer is connected to VLAN number 1, and my computer MAC address is F2. I believe so. This is my computer MAC address exactly. So I would say port number 5. What I am going to do in here, if you look at in here, guys, I am able to ping the wireless access point right now. So the wireless access point IP address is 192.168.1.101 or 101. What I am going to say in here I say that here's the thing. If IP 192.168.1.11 comes to this port with this MAC address, which is also related to VLAN number 1, eliminate it. I didn't like that port. Let's see what's gonna happen. I just implement that rules. So in here, I am not able to ping the wireless access point. Why? Because that port says that if any guest come to this port, which IP address is 192.168.1.11, and the MAC address, more accurate, the MAC address is this one, and that's also belong to VLAN 1, eliminate it. I don't need that one. All right, let's delete this one to make sure that this was the rule. Delete, and I want to see the result. I can easily ping that rule. So this is port security using S34 series, S3410 series of FS company gigabit network switch. So we just we have done with the port security. What else is in here? We have NFPP, Network Foundation Protection Policy. Network Foundation Protection Policy. If I click on this one, let's say I say ARP guard. ARP guard is Address Resolution Protocol guard. Eliminate, block. Anything when you see guard, IP guard, you have to guard that. You have to have a police. You have to traffic. You have to figure out. So ICMP guard. ICMP guard is echo reply ping. If you want this feature, I say I don't want this feature. I say I don't want IP guard. And then I will say ARP guard. I didn't want guard. So these are the network foundation protection policy. But I mean, we really need to on these things because it's very important. We need IP source guard, we need the ARP guard, we need the IP guard, we need the ICMP guard. This is how we can protect our switch. All right, storm control. So in a storm control, let's say I want to have there is a port which is connect to one of the test lab. This is for pharmaceutical company. Let's say port number 7 and number 8. I will say like, hey, let's say 40% broadcast is okay. I can say based on packet as well. How many packets is okay, how many packets is not okay. Based on kilobits, if you want, you can specify, but I would say based on bandwidth. Broadcast 40%, broadcast is okay inside these two network, inside these two port. And unicast, let's say 30% is fine, but multicast, let's say 50%, since multicast is probably the main purpose of that specific port. All right, if you look at in here, port number 7, you can see the just give me 1 second. I just want to see that you guys are able to ping it, able to see it or not. Yes. So if you look at in here, port number 7 is 40% broadcasting, multicasting 50%, and unicasting is 30% for both. This is how you can do the storm control as well. Like if there's a too much broadcast, I would say no, do not. If there's a too much broadcast coming to this port, now it says like 40% is okay, but more than that, I will not accept it. I mean, you have to stay like buffering. You have to stay in line, be in a queue. I mean, once the rest of the broadcast is released, then I will accept your request. It is not eliminating, it's not blocking, but we're gonna specify. For example, you set up the bandwidth for the specific port, like this port should receive 100 Mbps. So this is how we can do using broadcast, multicast, unicast. All right, we just complete the security. Let's come to advanced, and let's talk about the port uh, protect. Let's talk about the port protect. Which port? Port 11 and port 12 are protected port. I mean, these two ports are protected port. These two ports will not talk with one another. If you guys remember that we have a private VLAN, but using protected port is almost the same concept. These two ports are protected, but if you put any, for example, any devices to protected port, that is fine. It is going to everywhere, but the protected port, they cannot communicate with one another. Even though port 11 and 12, they are in the same protected port, but they are not communicating with one another. DHCP. All right. If I come to, let me I mean, uncheck these things because it's gonna create a problem for upcoming scenarios, but that's the main purpose of protected port. DHCP. Guys, if you come to the DHCP, you can specify DHCP. Let's say pool LAN. What is LAN? So the LAN is 192.168.1. Yes, this is .1. DHCP, I say start from 100. Remember that the gateway is 192.168.1.1. This is my gateway. 192.168.1.1. This is belong to VLAN number 1. Remember that. DNS, I would say 8.8.8. If I have another DNS, 4.4.2.2. Save. So this switch will provide the DHCP as well. So the question is, I need the DHCP for VLAN 20. Of course, why not? Let's say LAN, local area network 1 and 20. This is the pool name, and 192.168.10. Sorry, 20, because 20, and it's also start from 100. And the gateway is 192.168.20.1, and of course 8. And I don't know why this guy is making me safe. So let me explain what I have done in here. I say that VLAN 20 as also DHCP is on. If a client connect to the port VLAN number 20, it will receive 192.168.20.20. It should start from 100. Remember that, guys. 192.1. But if you come to the pool, it is not. I say start 100. Remember that, guys. I said save. So that was wrong. Just give me 1 second. Because DHCP should start 192.168.20.1.224. Why it's not accepting? 192.168.20 and range. So start from 100. This is the gateway and save. Yeah, technically it's supposed to be 192.168.1.100 because 1.1 is gateway. Probably I'm using 1.2 for some other purpose, 1.20 for my server, 1.21 for my another server. So that is why make sure to. All right, let's say if I want to exclude, Oh, there is a place where you can exclude. I was like, what happened? 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.100. Save. Beautiful. All right, so let's say another exclude. I save this one. Let's exclude. So if that's the exclude, this is for this range of IP. If I come here, this is the gateway server and this one, but I have exclude. Let's say I want to create another exclude. I haven't tested, guys. This is something that 192.168.20.1 to 20.100. 20.100. I mean, reserve it. I want to reserve from 1 to 100. Exclude. Save. So save. Um, let's come to so here's the place where you can create a DHCP. We created two DHCP and we found that there's excluded address as well. So in our scenario, our aim was to from 1 to 100. I want to reserve it, but rather than that, whatever is remain, distribute it to client which is looking for the specific VLAN. Let's say come to the network. Sorry, come to the port. When I come to the port, I will say that port number 7. Port number 7 app should belong to number VLAN number 20. This is how you can assign the description. This is let's say HR DEPT HR department speed auto. If you can make 1,000, this is how you can specify the speed of the Ethernet, the interface port. So app 20 is access. It's not trying. Save. Okay, this is how you can assign that specific VLAN for this one. So if I connect my computer to this port number 7, I will receive an IP. I will receive an IP from DHCP, which is start from 192.168.20.101 and start to 54. That's how you can assign static address. Okay, static address. Let's say that the client name is John. It is very important. The IP address is 192.168.2. Sorry, that 20.50. Subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. And the MAC address. This is the MAC address. I will say F4. The gateway is 192.168.2.20.1. The DNS is 8.8.8.8. Just hold your horses. I want to explain it what I have done in here. Wait a minute. 192.168.20.50. What this guy is saying in here. The range IP address is different than IP. So 192.168.20.50. Moscow 255.255.256. This is the MAC address. R192.168.20.1. What's giving me a hard time? Exclude address range. So let's say 102, save. Okay. So what I have done in here, I say that John, the MAC address is this one. Whenever, it's very important, we do have the same scenario with the Cisco switch. Whenever John plug his computer to my switch, I mean, no matter what in which port he's connecting, he have to receive 192.168.20.102, and the subnet mask is this one, and the gateway is this one. So this is how you can reserve an IP for a specific client or a specific user. This is the main concept of static address. Display client. So in here, if you have any client, then it can display as well. All right, so let's say that I have 192.192.168 this one. Let me see if run ncpa.cpl. In here, I am going to see if before I do that, let me see if port is very important. Port, my computer is connected to port number 1. So port number 1 is belong to VLAN 1. Okay, it's beautiful. I'm going to say take the DHCP IP as a reality check to make sure that we are able to receive DHCP IP. All right, let's see what's gonna happen. All right, let's come back here and double click if I'm able to receive any IP. All right, guys, if you look at in here, this is wrong. Give me 1 second. The DHCP is 192.1.1. This is my DHCP. This is good. And the IP address 192.1.1. This is the absolutely wrong. So far, I'm able to ping this one, and meanwhile, I am able to ping 192.168. I mean, I can able to ping both of them. So I receive 192.168.1.1. The DHCP works. Reality check. So let's come back to the DHCP. When I came here, client. If you look at here is a client. If I want to click on this one, you can delete, you can remove. But the question is that the execute exclude address range. I have no idea why the exclude address range doesn't work. Oh, let's say add. Oh, here's the problem. 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.100. Save. Remember that. So this was my bad. Save. Let's do one thing. Let's see if this option really works. Run ncpa.cpl. I am going to disable and I'm going to enable my port. Disable and enable, this is how you can refresh the interface. Searching for IP, because my aim is 1.1 is very secure IP and I don't want that IP to go any places. Double click, my friend. Details, there you go, 192.168.1.102. Beautiful, guys. Yes, we did it. Beautiful. So exclude as it really works. So what we have done was we came to DHCP, and I mean, as much as you want, you need to add more. Here is where you can add more for whatever range you want. All right, DHCP is clear. Everything is okay. No problem. Let's talk about the access list. In here, we have to name the access list. I believe so. Let's say name. Let's say DMZ DMZ network. Okay, this is the name of the access list. I want to add another access list. So there's a standard access list and we have an extended access list as well. Follow based on control, and this one is based on source address, based on control. I say LAN network LAN. So how many accesses I have? I have 2 access lists. So let's add the rules. I would say for network LAN permit, what I'm going to permit, let's say deny. Time management, I think let's come to access list, specify the time as well, add a time. Let's say working hours. So let's say time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Starting time, let's say start from 1, and yeah, let's start from 1. So, okay, start from 1 and end from 2, 1 hour. Anyway, but we're just testing. If you are very serious, guys, go ahead and do that stuff as well. So time object is incorrect. It should be correct now. Save. Do we need to name it? 100,000. Okay, I just say 1000. Time object is 1000 and it's every day. It start from 1 to 2. Come to access list again. I want to create a rule. So time period, I will say 1000. This specific any, I will say deny. If you click any IP, any IP will deny. But if you want a specific IP, let's say 192.168.1.101. This is my access point. Okay. So what I have done in here, I say that during of 1 to 2 o'clock, there is no protocol. Deny. Access controllers deny. I mean, any request come from this specific access point to my switch, deny it, reject it, and I don't need uh, anything. So this is a DMZ rule. Let's just rename it. Let's say network zone, network LAN net. For this one, I say deny. Again, same time, any IP. Okay. So I say that any IP comes to, I mean, during of 1 to 2 o'clock, since it's a lunchtime, nothing really works to the LAN. This is how I can eliminate it. So this is how you can delete selected access rules, and here is where you can access, where you can add access list. We configure the time, access list application. Let's say add a port. In here, let's say LAN. I will pick the LAN, and then what I'm going to do is port number 11, 12, 13, 14. I can specify by VLAN as well. Let's say VLAN 13 and input output. I will say input since it's a LAN. Save. Okay, guys, if you look at in here, port 11, 12, 13, 14, and VLAN 13 are what? These are ports direction inbound. I create access list. Like this is how we can say application based access list. I created this one, so for everything is okay. I just create application access list. All right, let's go to the QS, quality of services. So in order to classify the access, the quality of service, first we need to do is click on classify. Let's name this classify. Name like my phones. Got it? This is my phones. It is LAN. Save. So now I want to create another one. This is my HQ data. Let's say this is belong to DMZ. Save. This is how you can add, but we haven't done any rules and regulations. Okay, once we once we classify our access list, what we're gonna do is once we come to policy setting, in here we need to create another policies as well. Let's say my voice over IP, my voice over IP. Save. I want to create another one. Let me see if I can. I should be able to create another one. My HQ data. My HQ data. Save. So I want to create rules. I say for not for HQ data. First, I want to say for my voice over IP. For my voice over IP, let's say I have a let's say I have 100 Mbps. It is based on kilobits. 124 voice over IP. Let's say 215. Do not drop. Give the highest priority. Save. What I have done in here, I say that 1 MB is dedicated for my voice over IP phones. Voice over IP phones, remember that. So my phones, this is the first priority. If you remember, guys, we picked the first priority. So violation is the first priority. There should be no violation. Let's create another one for my data. Let's create another one for my data HQ. Other rules. Let's say 124 since I have 100 bps. 512. Drop. save. Alright, so for my data HQ, I say that the maximum is 100 Mbps and the minimum is 512, and if it exceeds the limit, drop the packet. Why? Because my voice over IP is the first priority, because I want to give my voice over IP the first priority. So flow setting. So let's add a port. This is flow setting. Input untrusted QS. I can say for my voice, since this is the priority, I say port number 7 and port number 8, the one which is connected to my phone, and meanwhile this one is connected to my computer as well. Don't get confused. That is possible. I say let's accept this one, save it. So in here we name it, in here we rule, we are the classics, the class setting, in here we name it, the policy setting we create a rule, flow setting we implement the rules on whatever port that we want. All right, I think we have done almost everything about this specific switch, and I hope the information was very helpful. It is middle of the night and there is no any other light to show my face, but I hope the information was very helpful. These are my recommended network switch as well. Probably if you're looking for high demanding, and if you're looking for the very intelligent network switch for 2023 2024, or these are the recent technology. As you know, that's a gigabit ethernet. Meanwhile, this is power over ethernet, and it is manageable switch. It is modular switch as well. You can add more ports in case if you want. You just need to purchase from FS company, and it does come with a 2 power supply, and what else a single network engineer needs. All right, I hope the information was very helpful. If you think it was very helpful, guys, don't wait. uh, Subscribe the channel and share this information with your friend, with your family, with your colleague, with whoever you think they're pursuing such a important information. The only way to appreciate my work is to simply subscribe, and until next time, stay safe, be brave, and of course see you guys next time.